Delaware, and my friends on Facebook. I'm Marcy, and I'm your reader for today. The theme for August is Living Everyday Wonder, Nature. The topic for today is the furry, the fuzzy, the slimy, and everyone else. Our readings today offer you a deep spiritual perspective on animals. From Anthony Douglas Williams, Canadian spiritualist, writer, and animal rights activist, when I look into the eyes of an animal, I do not see an animal. I see a living being. I see a friend. I feel a soul. And another thought from Williams, one day we will know that all animals have a soul. Hopefully this knowledge does not come when it is too late. Our concluding reading is from Anatoly France. Until one has loved an animal, a part of one's soul remains unawakened. Love your animals. Let's affirm together. I see all animals as living souls. In each, I see a friend. And now I bring back another friend, Reverend Kathleen.
I want to thank Dan for this. Makes me feel a little bit closer to you than when I stand behind there. All right. What a wonderful topic. I know that this room is filled with animal lovers. And so I know that this is near and dear to your hearts, and it's near and dear to my heart as well. And it's really continuing to uplevel my awareness of the sacredness of all of life, including animals. So let's begin at the beginning, that all that is present in this thing that we call life, all the galaxies, the solar systems, the planets, and all life forms on this planet are created by one source, one intelligence. That intelligence, therefore, lives through and as all. It's not separate. I think this is doing that funny thing again. And so, what does that mean? What that means to me is that everything is sacred. Everything. And so, over the past several hundred years, what has happened with humanity, and not all of humanity, we still have those who live in close contact with nature, but much of humanity has gone from being almost always outdoors, in nature, connected, to almost always indoors, with a bit of a sense of separation from this amazing thing called nature. And so the result of that disconnection from nature, is all sorts of environmental degradation and the extinction of animals at a really rapid rate. And fortunately, we're becoming awake and aware to what's going on. And so this month is dedicated to reconnecting with Mother Earth, with all of nature, in a way that maybe we haven't for a really long time. Now, some of you may spend a lot of time in nature already, but we're even asking, I'm even asking you to be more mindful, to come into your experience with nature in a present moment awareness, very mindful of the beauty and the wonder and the grace. I was just looking at Dr. Ami and thinking of her beautiful photos that she puts about nature. They're almost all natural photos, and how this is these are ways we can enrich each other. So there's so many ways that we can do this, but the point of it all is mindful presence, and in doing so, the activation of our hearts. And that's what we learned happens. It's called biophilia. We learned about that last week, that when we are mindfully in the present moment connecting with nature, our hearts explode open. We're designed that way. And therefore this beautiful experience of unity and oneness. And it reminds me of a time when we were hiking through the Alps, Dan and I, and it was one of those times when there was a beautiful stream going by, the snow-crested mountains, and we were sitting down to have some lunch, and I can still remember, I'm getting God bumps thinking about it, where I just had this amazing, it's really hard to describe, experience of oneness, and this huge energy of bliss just filled me up and overflowing. And that's something that we can have on a regular basis. That's the thing that's so beautiful about being in nature and being there, not with our minds chattering about all the other things going on in our lives, because that's what can happen. We can get out in nature and our minds are just somewhere else, But this is about being present and being available to what that connection and what nature has to offer us. Why are we bringing this up? Not only for our own vitality and health, but I truly believe that this is one of the keys to the survival of the planet, is that more and more of us awaken and allow our hearts to expand, because remember, we're connected. And so the inner work that we do with ourselves activates the hearts and the minds of all of humanity. And that's an important thing to continue to remember, so we don't get into, well, what's my little piece? What part is that going to play? It plays a huge part. And we know that from Dr. David Hawkins' work on consciousness and how higher levels of consciousness offset and counterbalance many, many others. And I'm knowing also there's that thing called the tipping point, where enough of us are in that state of oneness consciousness that it just activates the entire planet, all of humanity. So today what I want to focus on is the root cause of the crises and the amazing gift of the animal kingdom, our relationship with animals as living beings with souls. So the cause. We call it the consciousness of separation, right? Well, the environmentalists call it anthropocentrism. Anthropocentrism. And what they say is, it is the belief that humans are the only conscious and intelligent beings on the planet, and thus superior to all that is non-human. This is the root cause of our crises, our environmental crises. So what are the ramifications of this sense of superiority over anything that is non-human? What is it? I think we know. It comes to mind right away. It's seeing animals and plants and minerals as something that is to be used for profit, for pleasure, or whatever else. And so there's a disconnect there. Can you feel that? There's a disconnect. And so that's where things like animal poaching, or throwing trash in the ocean, or clear-cutting trees, that's some of the very few things that are done. But it's done from this mindless sense of things are there for me to use without any regard. Oh, ego and echo. Good job, Dan. Yeah. I like that graphic. He didn't tell me about this one. Yeah, ego. That's I'm better than all the animals, whereas I'm a part of all of nature. I'm, an integral part. So it takes out the superiority, inferiority idea into, I'm an equal part with all of life. All of life is valuable. Beautiful. Love that, Dan. Okay, so We know what happens with this lack of awareness. We know that this is what's going on with our environment right now, what's going on with the extinction of animals. And but here's the other thing. It also plays out in our relationships with each other. It plays out in human relationships. The idea of superiority, inferiority, the basis of racism, the basis of sexism, the basis of homophobia, the basis of all of those things comes from that idea that somehow there's this hierarchy of this, humans at the top and then everybody else and all the other animals. So that's what we are transforming here. That's what we've been transforming for quite a while now in consciousness, is waking up to it in ourselves, any remnants that might be in ourselves. It really begins within, so that we can be a shining example of that consciousness with the rest of humanity. So only in recent history have scientists been studying consciousness, intelligence, and communication with animals. And they've discovered, guess what they've discovered? They discovered what the mystics have known for centuries, is that there is life, there is conscious life in animals. Animals are able to communicate in amazing ways, and that there is also a high level of intelligence. In fact, the work of David Hawkins, I love bringing his work back in over and over again, because he created a way of calibrating consciousness using muscle testing. And what he found is that many animals in the animal kingdom have higher consciousness than most of humanity. Yeah. A really good example is he calibrated a dog wagging his tail or a cat purring and found out that they vibrate at the level of unconditional love. And so no wonder so many humans love to have pets. Unconditional love, which is something that's tough for a lot of humans to operate from, is unconditional love. And so, did you put it up, Dan? Yeah. Charlie Brown. We all want to be loved and to be loved unconditionally. And of course, Snoopy. That's why people get dogs. And cats. And birds and a lot of those other precious animals. And the other discovery is that most animals have the same needs as humans, such as the need for social interaction. And that's why caging and leaving animals alone for long hours is, alone, is very distressing. Very distressing. We know that. We've seen that. So I'm going to go back to what Williams said. One day we will know that all animals have a soul. Hopefully, this knowledge does not come when it's too late. The gift of animal relationships. In the Science of Mind magazine, there is a column written by Bob Lukin. Anybody read those columns? No? Okay. Well, I'm going to invite you to do that from now on. We have Science of Mind magazines for sale over there. But he has a regular ongoing column, and it's called Murphy's Dogma. And Murphy is his dog friend, who he calls a human whisperer. And so Murphy offers wisdom to humans. And so it's written in the voice, and there's Murphy. It's written in the voice of Murphy. It says, I, Murphy, think one reason I'm so happy is because I almost always say yes. I say yes to play, walks, naps, observation, exploration, and adventure. Maybe, later, and no are words that have little meaning for me. I'm going to say that again. Maybe, later, or no are words that have little meaning for me. Humans need to say yes more and spend less time evaluating whether or not to do something. I'm going to say that again. Humans need to say yes more and spend less time evaluating whether or not to do something. They should go for it. I've noticed many humans have a built-in resistance to doing new things. I don't know why they don't realize that no, maybe, or later can make their world small. I don't think it's healthy for human minds or spirits to live in a world made small. I've learned that saying yes to life and new experiences awakens, listen to this, feelings of agelessness and excitement. I haven't met many humans who wouldn't benefit from having more frequent feelings of agelessness and excitement. Anybody for agelessness and excitement? Saying yes more often. And it was saying yes that got you here today, right? Okay, so observing and treating animal friends blesses us not only with wisdom, a path to happiness, but also companionship and love. And that love is powerfully healing. How many know that? How powerfully healing our animal friends are. So I wanted to illustrate with something that I came across just recently. And Judy Hendrickson, if you're listening, I know you will like this particular message. So Judy Hendrickson runs an equine therapy center that's over in Landenberg. So I just want to go back to that beautiful quote from Anatole France. Until one has loved an animal, a part of one's soul remains unawakened. So I recently heard a testimony on a video. It was actually a class that I was taking online of a Vietnam vet who had tried every kind of therapy out there imaginable over, since he let his Vietnam days, and had not received a full healing. And so a bunch of his friends talked him into just trying equine therapy, working with a horse. And he was like, yeah, right. Yeah, no, that sounds really crazy. I can't believe that that's going to help me. And it turned out that it was the thing that healed him, that was the final piece that was needed for him to heal. So I decided I would look it up online, look up the idea of people in the military being healed through equine therapy, and there's a whole page on it. And so here's a really good example. This is a story of a man who had a 40-year history of PTSD that was not alleviated even after years of all kinds of therapy. I mean, it's a very similar story. He and his wife felt that equine therapy saved his life. He said, "When I first came here, I didn't know what to expect, but I found inner peace. Everybody talks about peace, but you really don't know it if you've never had it. And this is peaceful." Another combat vet said, it's my highlight of the week to go and see that horse. For the last couple of weeks, I've been a lot more mellow. When I drive, I'm not as tense. When my wife and I are together, we are much closer. And the veteran's wife said, my husband is a lot more cheerful. The horse that he's been working with seems to be sensitive and gentle. And I think that some of that has transferred to my husband. He has always had so much trouble from all those past memories from the war. And now he is learning, listen to this, the value of living in the present moment. And that's what we were talking about, right? Being in the present moment with nature, in this case, with a horse. So, I know that this room is full of people who are there, who understand the value of the animal kingdom, see them as friends, see them as souls. And yet it might be crossing your mind, but then what do I do about all the rest of humanity that, other people, then there's a lot of them who still exploit animals, who still are doing things that bring harm to them. And so this is where I come back to what we teach. Science of mind and the spiritual principles and philosophy that we teach is the answer. I mean, it's a very powerful piece in this because it all begins in consciousness. So our philosophy of unity and the sacredness of all life anchors us in a field of all possibility, infinite possibilities. We have this saying that says God and I are a majority. And so we enter the co-creative process then from that standpoint. And we have three major spiritual tools that we use. Meditation, which connects us with our inner wisdom. Visioning, that opens us, and it's a very receptive thing, visioning. It's not about me telling God what my vision is. It is opening up and saying, what is God's highest vision for my life around, protection of animals, and the awakening of humanity to the value of this interconnectedness of life. So there's inspiration, there's vision to pull us forward with the visioning process, and then we have a form of prayer, a practical prayer called spiritual mind treatment, that helps us develop a path of courage and strength and determination and wisdom and all the qualities that we need to activate this new level of consciousness, not only in ourselves, but to bring it out into the world through our actions. Spiritual mind treatment, our practical prayer, reminds us that life, the life of God, the one life of God, is our life. We are not alone in meeting the crises in our lives and on the planet. As we remember our unity with the one creative power of the universe, we can mindfully use our inherent creative nature to cultivate our minds and our hearts to be these beautiful, clear avenues through which creation takes place, which means manifesting solutions to educate and uplift the rest of humanity from this trance, we can call it a trance, of anthropocentrism. Holmes taught us that when we pray, believing that the answer is already here and now, spiritual law mysteriously, and we don't know how exactly it happens, but spiritual law mysteriously brings it forth into expression and manifestation in the most amazing ways. And our higher power guides us into actions that take us to actually take actions that contribute to the solution. So I wanted to share an example. And this is something that is here local, Tri-State Bird Rescue. And I know Reverend Linda has been on their board. There might be other people who've been involved too. Michelle has had the oil spill training. Candace has been a volunteer. And my grandson went there for a camp where he learned how to care for the animals, feed them and help with bandaging and that kind of thing. So there's a story about a beautiful female adult bald ego that was brought to the center, discovered on the side of the road, and unable to fly with a lot of injuries. And so animal control transported her to Tri-State for care. Well, Tri-State Bird Rescue, have anybody, I've been to the facility and I've had the whole tour, yeah, is a really unique facility. The thing that's so powerful is that it serves birds not only locally, in this tri-state area who need to be rehabilitated, it covers oil spills all over the planet, international reach, which is pretty amazing. So anyway, it has these amazing facilities for rehabilitation and expertise there as well. So last year, apparently, they admitted 103 bald eagles and rehabilitated them. 103 in 1 year in that facility. And that's just one kind of bird. And there are so many other birds that they take care of as well. So this particular eagle had been hit by a vehicle, and the lab test showed that she had elevated levels of lead in her bloodstream. And lead poisoning, as you may know, affects the brain. And so it affects coordination. It affects perception. And so their guess was that she probably, got hit by the vehicle because she was just disoriented. So what they did then is they worked with her for 6 weeks, eye trauma, significant wounds, taking care of the lead poisoning. After 6 weeks, she became healthy and strong enough to be released. This is one of many stories. And I trust that that inspires you. It inspires me. And just knowing there's so many things that can happen. And they do a great job, too, of educating the public through their tours as well. So what I'd like you to do is just yawn and stretch. I think you know what's coming next. Because every time we do this, I ask you just to go within, close your eyes, and ask yourself, how am I to grow in my relationship with the animal kingdom? Listen, and when you're ready, turn to a neighbor and have a conversation. Just a quick, it was 5 minutes we're going to take total, so each of you have about 2.5 minutes. How can I grow in my relationship with animals? In attitude, in educating others, in making contributions to places like Tri-State Bird Rescue or Delaware Nature Society. My other daughter, Christy, works for Delaware Nature Society, and my grandsons therefore receive all kinds of training about nature. They're little naturalists. And actually, my 2 daughters are like that too. They both taught classes at Delaware at Ashland Nature Center. So there's so many ways to do it, and there's also an opportunity to do research online as well. So, yeah. Uh-huh. Yeah, raise your hand if you're involved in. Okay, so wonderful. Very good. So you have some people to contact. Uh-huh. Yeah. Wonderful. Thank you. All right. So let's take a moment. Close your eyes. I'd like you to think of an animal that you have a hard time appreciating. I'm just going to say a few words. Could it be snakes, spiders, ants, wasps, yellow jackets, mosquitoes, whatever it is? I'd like you to think of one creature, one living being. Keep your eyes closed. Imagine looking in the eyes of that being, if you're able to, and then repeat after me. When I look into your eyes, I do not see an animal. I see a living being. I see a friend. I see a soul. And so it is. Namaste, my friends. Have a beautiful day. And now, Deb. Yeah, go ahead.
So Reverend Kathleen wanted me to